So let's get into this chapter 2 of the science of getting rich. So this again was the book that absolutely changed my life for me. And it really just showed me that you don't always have to be the hardest worker or, constantly grinding, grindset mindset to get to where you want to be in life. And honestly, before I had read Think and Grow Rich, or I had read The Science of Getting Rich and really been introduced into this information, that was all I had ever been told in life is you have to grind, you have to work hard, you have to, put in the time and effort and really do all these different things to get to where you want to be in life, which is not true. You don't have to have that grind set mindset. It's good to be a hustler and a good worker, and that's all really good things, but you don't need that in order to be rich. That's not the only way to get rich. And we're going to go over chapter 2 in this book. If you haven't seen the first video of this series, I actually went over chapter 1, kind of broke down some of the different things that he talks about in this book. I think this is more of a way to get a better mindset, less of a steps to riches and more of a steps to the better mindset, which is going to get you living in a certain way that's going to eventually make you rich. So I think this book is an absolute masterpiece. It's definitely changed my life in more ways than one. And like I said before, I have been studying this book for some time. That's a bookmark that my son gave me. But so I just kind of want to get right into it. It's chapter 2. There is a science of getting rich. And by the way, if you met me and you're watching this YouTube video, I'm sure you've actually heard me talk about this book before and recommend this book to you. So yes, so chapter 2, there is a science of getting rich. There is a science of getting rich, and it is an exact science like algebra or arithmetic. And the first time I heard that, I was like, I never heard that before. There's a science in getting rich like algebra or arithmetic, like it's a thing that you can study and learn how to do. There are certain laws which govern the process of acquiring riches. Once these laws are learned and obeyed by any man, he will get rich with mathematical certainty. So I love math, so that was automatically, I was like, this is the book for me. The ownership of money and property comes as a result of doing things in a certain way, which he talks further about in the entire book. And I think I had mentioned it, there's a chapter 9 or 13 or 11, I think, is living in a certain way. So stick with me and we'll get to that point. The ownership of money and property comes as a result of doing things in a certain way. Those who do things in a certain way, whether on purpose or accidentally, get rich, while those who do not do those things in a certain way, no matter how hard they work or how able they are, remain poor. So everybody says that you have to have that grind set mindset to get to that to win and get rich. But how many people do you know that are hard workers that have been working hard their entire lives and have never got to a point of riches? I can name 25 people off the top of my head, to be honest, of how many hard workers I know that have never got into the actual riches of life. You don't only get rich from hard work. You got to live in a certain way. While those who do not live in a certain way, no matter how hard they work or how able they are, remain poor. It is a natural law that like causes always produce like effects, and therefore any man or woman who learns to do things in a certain way will infallibly get rich. That the above statement is true is shown by the following facts. Getting rich is not a matter of environment, for if it were, all the people in a certain neighborhood will become wealthy. The people of one city would all be rich, while those of all other towns would all be poor. Or the inhabitants of one state would roll in wealth, while those of adjoining states would be in poverty. But everywhere we see rich and poor living side by side, in the same environment and often engaged in the same vocations, which is a job if you don't know. I didn't know that before. That's the only reason I'm saying that. When two men are in the same locality and in the same business, and one gets rich while the other remains poor, it shows that getting rich is not primarily a matter of environment. Some environments may be more favorable than others, but when two men in the same business are in the same neighborhood and one gets rich while the other fails, it indicates that getting rich is the result of doing things in a certain way. And further, the ability to do things in this certain way is not due solely to the possession of talent, For many people who have great talent remain poor, while others who have very little talent get rich. Studying the people who have got rich, we find that they are an average lot in all respects, having no greater talents and abilities than other men. It is evident that they do not get rich because they possess talents and abilities that other men do not have, but because they happen to do things in a certain way. So a lot of people, probably, I'm sure a ton of smart people, hard workers, very talented people that have never become rich. And I'm sure on, the other hand, not the smartest people that have become rich. I like how he actually puts it into this next spot. He says blockheads. So not the smartest group. Getting rich is not the result of saving or thrift. Many very penurious people are poor, while free spenders often get rich. And that's one thing that I've been told a million times, to save your money, save your pennies, save up. You have to save. You have to save. That's the only way. Nor is getting rich due to doing things which others fail to do. For two men in the same business often do almost exactly the same things, and one gets rich while the other remains poor or becomes bankrupt. From all these things, we must come to the conclusion that getting rich is the result of doing things in a certain way. If getting rich is the result of doing things in a certain way, and if like causes always produce like effects, then any man or woman who can do these things in that way can become rich. Anybody can become rich. You don't need luck. And the whole matter is brought within the domain of exact science. The question arises here whether this certain way may not be so difficult that only a few may follow it. This cannot be true, as we have seen. As far as natural ability is concerned, talented people get rich and blockheads get rich. Intellectually brilliant people get rich and very stupid people get rich. Physically strong people get rich and weak and sickly people get rich. Some degree of ability to think and understand is of course essential, but in so far as natural ability is concerned, any man or woman who has the sense enough to read and understand these words can certainly get rich. Also, we have seen that it is not a matter of environment. Location counts for something. One would not go to the heart of the Sahara and expect to do a successful business. Getting rich involves the necessity of dealing with men and of being where there are people to deal with. And if there are people and if these people are inclined to deal in the way you want to deal, so much the better. But that is about as far as environment goes. If anybody else in your town can get rich, so can you. And if anybody else in your state can get rich, so can you. Again, it is not a matter of choosing some particular business or profession. People get rich in every business, in every profession, while their next door neighbors in the same vocation remain in poverty. It is true that you will do best in the business what you like. So do something you love. Everybody says that is something that is very true. You always want to do something that you love and, study to be better in that field. It is true that you will do best in the business which you like and which is congenial to you. And if you have certain talents which are well developed, and you will do best in a business which calls for the exercise of those talents. Also, you will be best in a business which is suited to your locality. An ice cream parlor would be better in a warm climate than in Greenland, and a salmon fishery would do better in the northwest than in Florida, where there are no salmon. But aside from the general limitations, getting rich is not dependent upon your engaging in some particular business, but upon you learning to do things in a certain way. If you are now in business and anybody else in your locality is getting rich in the same business, while you are not getting rich, is because you are not doing things in the same way that the other person is doing them. So he talks a lot about doing things in a certain way. And if you really want to know what that certain way is, you have to buy this book and read it through. I will get to that point, but I'm not going to jump right to it. So if you really want to know what the certain way is, buy the book, which is linked below. And I'm not making any money off of it. I'm trying to help people, and the science of getting rich is helping other people, and you will also get rich, which is not the certain way, but it's a good way to start. No one is prevented from getting rich by the lack of capital. True, as you get more capital, the increase becomes more easy and rapid. But one who has capital is already rich and does not need to consider how to become so. No matter how poor you may be, if you begin to do things in a certain way, you will begin to get rich and you will begin to have capital. Some people think that the only way you can get rich is if you already have money, which is obviously not true because there's so many people that were poor that got money. The getting of capital is part of the process of getting rich, and it is part of the result, which is invariably follows the doing things in a certain way. You may be the poorest man on the continent and be deeply in debt. You may have neither friends, influence, nor resources, but if you begin to do things in this way, you must infallibly begin to get rich, for like causes must produce like effects. If you have no capital, you can get capital. If you are in the wrong business, you can get into the right business. If you are in the wrong location, you can get into the right location, and you can do so by beginning in your present business and in your present location to do things in a certain way which causes success. So it might feel like that's chapter 2, by the way. It might feel like right now nothing is going your way. You're having a hard time getting to where you want to be, but I promise you, if you start doing things in a certain way, which is talked about in this book, you will get to where you want to get to. I'm actually moving to Florida next month based on myself doing things in a certain way and working towards a life that I want to get. I don't want to live in the state that I live in right now. I wasn't in the right location, like it just talked about, and I'm making sure that I'm getting into the one that I want to get into. I didn't want to do, when I first read this book, I was doing a job that I did not like at all. And I don't know, 8 months later, I was doing something completely different. I was working outside before, and now I sit in this office in an AC'd room, and I make money from my desk. I make money from my phone. I make money while I'm sitting at the lake. I make money while I'm out in Canada at a show or whatever I'm doing. I'm making money without having to dig holes or do landscaping or be outside sweating my butt off. So you can definitely completely change your life, and it might take a year. It might take 8 months. It might take 6 months, but it's worth it in the long run of things. If you start living in a certain way, you will 100% get into the right business. I promise you, if it feels like you're not on the right track right now, you can get on the right track by living in a certain way. You can. You just have to believe that you can do it. And it's a good start is to read other people that have done it themselves. So don't be afraid to go ahead and click on the link below. I linked the paperback version, which is like $9. So definitely go ahead, grab that book, start reading. It's 150 pages and it will change your life. It took me 2 days to read. 2 days. That's something that you can risk to change your whole life. Would you give up 2 days of your life to change the next 30? Because I would every single day of the week. Every single day. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll definitely be back to read you chapter 3.